Celtic have reportedly agreed a £1.5 million deal for Japanese striker Shin Yamada, but will that spell an end to the search for a striker this summer? Yes, what's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. It is a Thursday transfer update, and it looks like we finally have some movement in terms of bringing in a new striker. Shin Yamada from Kawasaki Frontale in Japan, a £1.5 million deal has reportedly been agreed between Celtic and the J-League club. That was reported by Sky Sports News this morning. And that begs a lot of questions because striker is the big priority for us this summer. After not replacing Kyogo in January, it is the big thing on the shopping list this summer that stands out. I think it's the number one priority. I know there's a lot of areas of the squad we need to improve and areas you would like to see us spend good money in and bring in good quality players, but I think striker is the number one on the list. We're trying to replace Kyogo, who scored a lot of big goals for us during his time at the club. He was a real talisman for us, and so there has been a lot of attention on this pursuit for a striker. We did bring in Callum Osmond, who made his first appearance in that friendly against Cork City the other night, but the consensus is that he will come in as the third choice striker, being 19 years of age, not having played any senior football to this point. He looks like he'll play a similar role to Johnny Kenny as he did last season, and who knows where Kenny's future is going to be by the end of this transfer window. So the pursuit of a striker has been a big one for the club. It looks like Shin Yamada is on his way to Celtic, but again, I think there's going to be some question marks, as there always is with the recruitment, given the price tag, given where Yamada is coming from, and given his goal scoring record in this current season, which we'll come back to in a minute. There has been links with Giuseppe Ambrosino as well from Napoli, who was on loan at Frosinone last year. I think, again, the calibre and the profile of these players is open to criticism. Again, you can never look at a signing or a potential signing and say it's going to be good or bad before they arrive. But I think some people, just going by people I've been talking to, all of the interactions online and the comments section, I don't think anybody's really blown away by either of these options. And now we're in the position where people are thinking we're maybe going to bring both in, both Yamada and Ambrosino. Now, in terms of Ambrosino, I think Napoli received a £2.5 million bid from a club yesterday. I'm not sure who that is. It's certainly not been confirmed that it's Celtic as far as I know so far. But will we bring in Yamada and Ambrosino, and what does that mean for the future of Daisen Maeda? Because if you think that we're going to have Ida, Kenny's still there, although he may well depart by the end of the summer. We've brought in Callum Osmond. If we bring in Yamada and Ambrosino, we've got 5 strikers. And Daisen as well, who predominantly through his time at Celtic played off the left, but played a lot through the middle last season. There's no way we're going to keep 5 strikers happy. I would say there's no way we're going to keep 4 strikers happy. So again, are you looking at Ida, Osmond, Yamada, Ambrosino? If Kenny does depart, even if we keep Daisen, that's a lot of competition, and I don't think there's any way that you're able to keep that number of players happy. Now, let's look at Yamada in more detail. He is 25 years of age. Like nearly all of the players who come through in Japan, he did come through the university system. He only really became a full-time professional in 2022. So despite being 25, again, like Ryo Hatate, similarly, I think Inamura's in the same bracket as well. They're late to become full-time professionals because they go through the university system. That's the case for Yamada as well. Now, he has a very different record in the previous 2 seasons at Kawasaki Frontale. This season, which is 2025, the J-League season runs basically through the calendar year. In all competitions for Kawasaki, he's played 33 times and only scored 6 goals. If you go back to the season before that, in 2024, he made 50 appearances in all competitions and scored 20 goals. That's a much healthier return. I've watched a lot of clips of him last night and this morning on Y Scout. I think you can see the type of player that he is. I would argue that he's similar to Kyogo in some ways. He's slightly taller. He's definitely stronger. He's got a stockier build than Kyogo. but his movement's similar. He's a goal scorer. A lot of his goals that I watched this morning, I probably watched maybe 20 odd of the goals that he scored for Kawasaki Frontale. There is a lot of those goals that you would associate to being Kyogo type goals in his time at Celtic. There's a load of headed goals in there. So despite being only 5'9", he does have some aerial prowess. Now, whether that would translate to the Scottish game, where he will be up against taller, more physical, potentially stronger defenders, because of the way that the game is here, that's to be seen. There's a lot of finishes on his left foot, some on his right foot as well. I think there's a good spread of goals there. You can tell that he's got a good goal scoring instinct. But again, people will look at that record this season and say, why are we bringing a striker to the club who scored 6 goals in 30 odd appearances? He's obviously having a poor season by his standards. I think you can tell there is quality there. But again, I think the jury will be out on whether he can be the guy that comes in and takes the mantle of being Celtic's #1 striker. I think people will look at that record. They may well look at the price tag as well, and cast doubt upon it. Now, I know we've had loads of players over the course of the last 10, 15 years who come in at 1.5, £2 million, £3 million, and they're successful. We sell them on for big profits. But the number of players we bring in around the £1.5 million mark who don't go on to be huge successes and be sold for huge profit is way bigger. So that question mark is going to be there with Yamada. I think you can tell he has some quality, but again, it's untested at this level, and that's the risk when you bring in a player around this price level and from a league like the J League. Now, we have had some success. I talked about this when we were first linked with Yamada. Obviously, Kyogo, Daisen, Ryo Hatate, they've all been huge successes coming in from Japan, but there has been some players that haven't hit the mark as well, in terms of Ideguchi, Kobayashi, Tomoki Iwata. Now, again, there might well be, I know that some of you, the last time I said that, were like, well, Ideguchi got a bad injury and Iwata looked all right when he played, but ultimately they weren't successes. Now, again, coming from the Asian market, we've also had Yang and O. Again, I know a lot of you would make the point that O was let go too soon, and he was linked with a big £10 million move, and this summer transfer window as well. So he's obviously done well after his move to Belgium. But again, there is an element of risk here, and I think, to sum it up, the support are looking for a real marquee signing to come in and be the #1 striker. It's such a key position for any team. It's such a huge position for Celtic as well. As I say, we're trying to replace a talisman like Kyogo, and also have someone to come in and go ahead of Ida, or at least push Ida, and give us a different quality there as well, because I think Ida was quite underwhelming at times last season, and again, none of us are really convinced that he's going to be the #1 striker week in and week out for Celtic moving forward. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I think it's an interesting signing. I think he's got qualities. I think he is in the Kyogo mould, almost roughly enough in the Kyogo mould, where he does give you that difference in attributes from Ida. But again, it's all to be seen whether he's going to come in and make an impact and really hit the ground running. It is believed that the deal won't be completed, that he won't come and join up with Celtic and do his medical and join the group until after the East Asian Cup, which he's currently playing in for Japan. He just got his first full international cap for the Japanese national team as part of that competition. So I think that runs until mid-July. So after that is when the deal was reported to be concluded, and then he will become a Celtic player. In terms of Ambrosino, we'll wait and see if there's any developments on that front. Let me know if you think we will bring in 2 strikers, and if we do bring in 2 strikers, will that put a doubt in your mind about the future of Daisen Maeda, and do you think that these striker targets are of the profile and of the calibre that we need to improve the team this season? If I just give you my own thoughts on that before we round up, there's a lot of commentary and a lot of opinions about why the recruitment has been the way that it has been this summer. I think the future of Brendan Rodgers is a big factor in that. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of this season. I have the feeling that he will move on, and I think if the season starts And as it progresses, if he still hasn't signed a contract, that's going to become a bigger and bigger story, to the point where eventually, if he is leaving, he's going to have to say, look, my time's up at the end of the season. And who knows what impact that could have. But I think his comments around Inamura suggested that he wasn't really front and centre of bringing Inamura to the club. Now, you may well expect that, the way modern football transfers work. We've got a recruitment department there, Paul Tisdale, whoever else is doing the scouting, the club doing the deals. So it's not all about the manager, but I think his comments around Inamura did suggest that he wasn't really sure that he was ready to contribute to the first team. Now, I accept that after the Cork game, he seems to have been surprised by Inamura in his early training sessions and his performance in that game. I thought Inamura was pretty good in the game. To be fair, he played at left back. We expect him to come in as a left centre half, but he played at left back the other day, and I think he was good. He looked really sharp on the ball. He had some nice touches, some really nice forward passes as well. So again, it's way too early to be judging Inamura. I think after 10, 15 competitive games, you can start forming opinions. Certainly not after one friendly against Cork City, but I think there's some question marks around the recruitment this season in terms of Brendan Rodgers' future, and I think the big thing for the club will be we have to navigate a Champions League qualifier. And I know and you know that the opinion of the club is that is a risk. The Champions League qualifier is a risk. So therefore, we can't lay out big money because we might not make the Champions League. That is what the club will say. They already said it. If you go back to last season's statement, as part of the accounts release, that they have to prepare for the next time they don't make the Champions League. So there's a couple of factors in terms of, can you get your big targets early enough in the window? Do you need to wait for them? And then if you wait, you leave it to the last minute. If you're trying to navigate the qualifier first and secure the money and then go and spend, you don't have the ability to do that because the window after the how much is left of the window after the Champions League qualifier is so short. So I think that's the way the club will look at it. They'll say, should we go and spend big money, the likes of the Engels fee, for example? Can we go and do that for a striker this summer? Well, what if we don't make the Champions League and we're brought in a striker on 10 million quid and 35, 40 grand a week? They won't do that because they have this risk of the Champions League qualifier. And I think that's counterintuitive. I think if you go and sign your number one targets and you pay the money to get the right quality, you're in a much better position and you've got a much higher chance of making it through that qualifier and making it to the Champions League. But we know that's not how Celtic look at things. We know that how the club is run is risk averse, and that's put us in a good financial footing, don't get me wrong, but it does have its shortcomings. And again, people are going to level that criticism at the club if we don't get the right quality in the door to navigate that Champions League qualifier. But that's not the only factor. I think the future of the manager is also there, and I think those two things are maybe characterising the recruitment this summer. Now, I know there's a long way to go in the window. I'm not trying to define it yet. As I say, with every signing, you cannot judge it good or bad until the players get in the door and you see them play at least 10, 15 games before you can start forming any opinions. But you know what it's like in transfers and recruitment. Everybody's so opinionated and people are going to make judgments. With the likes of Yamada coming to the club for £1.5 million because we want to be pushing on, we want to be signing players at a certain level who we think can push us on in Europe. And again, you can't hide from the fact that we're trying to replace Kyogo, who was such a good player for us and such a big player over 3 or 4 years. So that's all for today. There's not going to be a video over the weekend. I'm going away this weekend. I'm going to London, so I'll miss the friendly in Portugal this weekend, and I'll miss any more transfer news that comes out. We'll be active on social media during those times as well if you want to catch up with any opinion on the transfer front. But that's it for today. Let us know your thoughts on the potential incoming transfer of Shin Yamada to Celtic, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.